We have Emily Billow. Now, Emily interned with us here at Park City Television when she was in high school. She's now graduating early from USC Film School, and as I mentioned, recently completed a documentary all about environmental injustice. Emily, we're so grateful to have you here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on.
It's great to connect with you. It's been a while. You've been obviously very busy. So tell me a little bit about your senior thesis project and this film that you created.
Yeah, so the project I created was my thesis, as you said, at USC. So it was created in this last semester of school that I just had. The title of the project is Diesel Death Zone. And so this is a film that's looking at the communities and the neighborhoods situated around the Port of LA and the Port of Long Beach, as well as the oil refineries and the busy freeways that are there. And so it's called the Diesel Death Zone because these communities deal with a very high extent of air pollution. And what comes with that is some really serious health effects. And all of the residents there deal with some sort of asthma to more serious things like respiratory diseases and cancer. And so I was really exploring this issue and getting to know the residents and what one local organization is doing to kind of fight this environmental injustice.
So what made you decide to do a documentary for your senior thesis project and also to focus on this particular topic?
Yeah, so I decided to do a documentary because that is the field that I'm going into. That's what I'm most interested in the film world. I've always loved documentaries. I think since growing up with Sundance was a big influence, but choosing this topic was really interesting because I lived on USC campus before the pandemic kind of hit. But in March, when the lockdown happened, I moved down to San Pedro, right where it's right on the doorstep of the Port of LA. And so I was really immersed in learning a lot about that. It's pretty evident, like the massive cranes, the huge cargo ships coming into port every single day, and the truck traffic is just it's just very prevalent there. And so it's kind of hard to ignore it. And so that's when my research really started when I moved down there.
You know, that research is the backbone of any documentary. So I'm curious about your process. How did you decide who to talk to within this documentary? You have many interviews, you have some great footage, you went and got some of your own B-roll, of course, to add to some of these excellent interviews. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about this particular process and how you decided to find the individuals that you feature in this documentary.
Yeah, definitely. So the research process was pretty extensive, even though it was all basically done in a semester and it was a shortened semester. But I started my research actually in the summer since I had been down there for a while. And initially, I was actually really interested in more about the ecology and the environment around the Port of LA, kind of looking at how this pollution was affecting like the animals and the ecosystem itself. But that kind of quickly changed as I came across the term diesel death zone. And I really started focusing in on the interdisciplinary area between the environmental and the social injustices that are happening here. And I think that was a good trend in my research because my background has really been a lot about environmental issues and things like that within my work. But yeah, the process in getting to know my subjects and finding the right people, it was a long one. I started out with doing lots of Zoom interviews because of COVID, and just kind of reaching out to professors that I knew might be able to help, and then just cold calling people who I thought might be interested in. And that's actually what happened with finding one of my main subjects, Jesse Marquez. I was able to get his phone number and just call him, and he turned out to be like the perfect person to provide this personal look into the community.
Now, you're mentioning the many different subjects that you featured in your film. Is there one that really stands out to you? I know you interviewed physicians to people that were directly affected, to workers, many different people that are involved in this. Is there one story that really stands out to you?
Yeah, I think it was important for me to interview. Like you said, I had a board certified emergency physician. I also had an environmental health professor. But I think Jesse Marquez, who is the community organization leader of the Coalition for a Safe Environment, which is a local environmental justice organization in Wilmington, I think he was probably the most important and the most key subject for me. Just because he has lived in Wilmington his whole life. He's dealt with these injustices since he was 17, 18, when a refinery actually exploded across the street from his house. And that really started his journey in the activism world. And I think that personal perspective of those who are just fighting on the ground every single day in Wilmington and in these environmental justice communities is the most important to share. Rather than maybe like some of the big organizations like who are setting environmental regulations. They are not necessarily on the ground per se like Jesse was.
You filmed this during the pandemic. How did it change your filming process, COVID-19? And you mentioned that you had to do some Zoom interviews. How else did it affect your documentary?
Yeah, it was interesting. First and foremost, I usually would have created a big film like this with a team of maybe 3 other people. That would be kind of standard for a big film project like this at USC. But because of COVID and because everyone was really working from home, working remote, it was just not possible. And so every student was kind of their own team. I did all of the pre-production, all of the production, all of the post. It was basically just all me. And I did have some help from the person I lived with, but it was really an individualized process. And then as far as like going out and filming during COVID, it was difficult, definitely provided scheduling challenges, but we were able to kind of get around that and like be outside wearing masks, especially with, as you saw, the traffic count survey, like everyone is already taking the most precautions that they can, but still doing the work that they need to be doing.
You know, Emily, this is such an excellent piece of work. It's been really fun to be a small part of your journey and to watch you from being an intern right here on Park City Television to now going to USC Film School. You mentioned that Sundance really played a big role when you were younger in creating this journey for you and deciding on this career. So you're getting ready to graduate. What's next for you?
Yes, that is a great question. I'm working as an editor right now, so that's kind of what's just baseline what I'm doing. But as I get further into the documentary filmmaking world, I think it's important to keep an open mind because these projects, they don't always come together right away. They don't always reveal themselves to you in the way that you think they're going to play out. So I certainly didn't know like what exactly this piece was going to turn into when I started my research and when I moved down there. But it really did come together well. And I think I'm just excited for whatever does come next and whatever subject I'm able to delve into next. But I hope that it will align with these sort of environmental values that I've kind of embedded in all of my work so far.
It sounds like working on this documentary was a bit of a metaphor for life. You have to change, pivot, and you never know what to expect, but you need to take those opportunities. Emily, it's been so nice talking with you today. And again, it's been so exciting to watch you. Really am looking forward to seeing what you do next and honored by everything that you've done. So very grateful that you spent some time with us here on Park City Television. You can watch that documentary on YouTube. So be sure to tune in to that. You can find out more about Emily as well. All right, we'll be back with more on this Friday right after this.